Welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, the place where we trace the subtle lines that tie hearts, careers, and chance together. Today, we're opening the door to a mystery you've been asking about for weeks, the almost otherworldly bond between Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre Arda. What is it that makes them feel so attuned, so effortlessly in sync, as if the air itself bends toward them whenever they share a frame or a room? Is it pure coincidence, a practiced performance, or something deeper pulsing under the surface? Settle in, because we're going to peel this story layer by layer, gently, curiously, and with a little bit of wonder. Before we plunge into the heart of it, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on, so you never miss our next deep dive. Your support keeps our spotlight steady. Now, let's slow time for a moment and look closely at what pulls Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre Arda together. We're not just talking about on-screen spark, though theirs is undeniable. We're talking about how their glances find each other in the noise, how words between them seem optional, how their presence together shifts the mood of entire rooms. To understand it, we'll start with what our eyes can measure, the science of personality and movement. Think about the people in your life who felt familiar the first time you spoke to them. Chances are, you shared more than interests, you shared a rhythm. In the case of Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre Arda, that rhythm begins with compatibility in the quiet parts of personality. There's a sense that their expectations of life overlap in crucial ways, ambition tempered with warmth, discipline cushioned by humor. When they're interviewed, you can hear it in the way they laugh at the same moment, often at jokes that barely reach the microphone. Psychological compatibility isn't the stuff of fairy tales, it's the groundwork of trust. Picture two puzzle pieces with different edges but matching colors. The fit feels surprising, almost accidental, yet the picture is clearer because they meet exactly where the other needs room. Then there's the conversation of the body, the dialogue without sentences. Watch their posture when they're seated side by side. Shoulders relax. Knees angle inward, not a complete turn, but enough to say I'm with you. When one leans forward, the other follows a breath later. Their hands speak too. A careful touch to underline a point, a light tap on the forearm when they're amused, that lingering hover that reveals comfort. This is rapport, and while it can be rehearsed, it's almost impossible to fake consistently. The body remembers how it feels when it's safe. For them, that safety is visible, open palms, soft eyes, a closeness that never looks performative. It's a dance made of micro-movements, each one unconsciously echoing the other, each step reinforcing the sense that they're tuned to the same station. Listen to their sentences when they share interviews or live streams. You'll notice an elegant overlap. One begins a thought and the other assigns the perfect verb. A question finds its answer before it fully lands. A story started by Gökberk glides to its conclusion in Cemre's voice. This isn't mind reading. It's the product of attentiveness and patience, a learned cadence that happens when two people give each other space to breathe. The timing between them is unusually precise, like musicians who've rehearsed a part but find the tempo without a metronome. It's not just charming, it's evidence of mental alignment, the kind that turns conversation into a shared performance rather than a tug-of-war. Now we slip beyond what we can count. Energy. It's a word that makes skeptics fold their arms, and yet everyone recognizes it when it fills a room. With Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre Arda, you feel a circulation rather than a clash. One carries a tempered focus that steadies the atmosphere, the other arrives with brightness that warms it. When they stand together, those qualities don't compete, they fuse. The result is a field that quiets the noise around them. People describe it as good vibes because it's easier to say than what it truly is. Two frequencies falling into harmony, each amplifying the other without drowning it out. You can't measure that with a device, but you don't need to. The evidence is the ease on their faces and the hush that often falls around them. Creative synergy takes that shared current and turns it into fuel. Think about the projects where they've stood shoulder to shoulder. Photo shoots that felt like scenes from a story, rehearsals that looked less like work and more like discovery. Public moments where their spontaneity built something neither would have constructed alone. When complementary talents meet, the output is never just addition, it's multiplication. He might introduce restraint when a scene begs for nuance, she might push for a daring beat when caution sneaks in. They expand one another's range. That's the alchemy of collaboration. The courage to take a step because you know someone steady is stepping with you, the freedom to risk because you're not risking alone. If you're inclined to let the heart wander into softer territory, there's an argument to be made for destiny, too, call it soulmates, twin threads, or karmic echoes. The story doesn't need reincarnation to be romantic, though some believe the pull between certain people is older than a single lifetime. But even within this life, look at the coincidences circling them, chance overlaps on schedules that shouldn't have lined up, mutual friends from years past who never knew they'd someday set the stage, a casual recommendation that lands them in adjacent seats at an event they almost didn't attend. You can call them coincidences. Or you can admit that meaning has a habit of collecting around certain connections, as if time itself was nudging them inward, asking them to pay attention. There's also the lens of archetypes, the roles we unconsciously carry and trade. In one light, he is the anchor and she is the spark. In another, she is the compass and he is the path. When archetypes complement, they don't trap people in boxes, they give them a mirror. The hero learns to rest when the sage reminds him that stillness is strength. The lover finds boundaries when the companion whispers that devotion isn't a cage. Watch how they steady each other's extremes. When pressure mounts, he offers structure that doesn't stifle. When doubts creep in, she opens a window to possibility. They are not opposites, but counterpoints, balancing forces that turn growth into a duet. Of course, none of this means much without emotional honesty. That's the quiet test. Real connection is built in the moments the public doesn't see. Confessions whispered after long days, the courage to share mistakes without dressing them up, the unglamorous support that shows up on off days with tea and patience. People talk about chemistry like it's sparks and spectacle, but the rare thing is safety. If they've built a space where they can be unpolished and still cherished, that explains why their presence together feels resilient. You can sense when two people aren't pretending to be perfect for each other. You can sense when they're choosing to be real. Chemistry is still part of the story, yes, the quickening pulse, the softening tone, the glance that stretches a second longer than necessary. There's no formula for it, and maybe that's the point. Chemistry isn't just attraction, it's recognition. It's that subtle click when two constellations line up and you recognize a shape you didn't know you were missing. With Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre, the spark is obvious, but it's the glow after the spark that keeps people watching, the warmth that lingers, the sense that they both breathe a little easier not because they need each other to be whole, but because each makes life more vivid for the other. And then there's synchronicity in the wide sense, the choreography of life outside their control. Notice how opportunities keep steering them into the same orbit. A postponed event that places them at the same panel a month later. A photographer who insists the campaign needs both faces to tell the right story. A friend who invites one and then realizes the other is already on the list. These aren't signs written in stars, they're breadcrumbs on a path that becomes visible only when you glance back and connect the dots. The universe doesn't shout, it arranges. The pattern here looks less like coincidence and more like current, guiding them toward the same shores again and again. When you combine all of this, compatible minds, welcoming bodies, attentive conversation, shared energy, creative co-creation, archetypal balance, emotional truth, undeniable chemistry, and a string of meaningful alignments, you don't get a spell. You get an explanation for why two people make sense together in a way that feels easy and extraordinary at the same time. It's not a single reason, it's the weave of many threads, each one strengthening the next, creating something that holds even when the spotlight moves away. So we return to the question we began with. What makes the bond between Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre feel magical? Maybe it's that their connection holds both mystery and logic. The mystery lives in their glances and in the hush that follows them. The logic rests in all the small, observable signs. Shared timing, matched intentions, the way they leave room for each other. Magic without grounding drifts away, grounding without that shimmer can feel ordinary. They seem to have both, stitched together in a way that keeps us watching and, honestly, keeps them steady. Now it's your turn. What have you noticed in their interviews, their collaborations, their candid moments that supports this? Do you believe in destiny, or do you think it's a beautiful convergence of personality, timing, and choice? Have you experienced a connection that felt like this, part pattern, part wonder? Tell us in the comments, because your stories make these conversations richer. And if this deep dive lit up your curiosity, tap like, share the video with someone who loves a good mystery of the heart, and of course, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets and ring that notification bell so you won't miss our next exploration. Until then, keep your eyes open for the quiet clues. Sometimes the strongest threads are the ones you don't see until you're already wrapped in them.